Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We've got some fantastic questions for you today. Loads of good ones. So we'll get to them in just a moment. Before we do, don't forget, shop at Kendostar. You know I say every week, and if it's your first time here, well, where have you been? Welcome to the Kendo Show, the best place to enjoy Kendo on YouTube, pretty much. Well, one of, anyway, definitely. And if you enjoy the content that I put out for free, everyone, then always for free, always, then you can support us and help us keep doing it by shopping at Kendostar.com. There's a logo in the here. There we go. Kendostar.com is my website, sells amazing Kendo equipment. So yeah, you get awesome equipment. I get to keep the lights on and feed my kids. So everyone's happy. Win-win. Okay, so shop at Kendostar. Okay. Right, let's get into these questions. Hi Andy. Shugyou type training is viewed by some as historically being an important step in gaining the knee stage of Shuhari. Do you know if Kendoka in Japan still do Shugyou? And do you know if there are uchideshi in Kendo dojos at all? Thanks. Okay, so the thing is the word Shugyou is quite it's quite broad in the first sense, but what I think you're sort of referring to is what's often called the Musha-Shugyou, which is where sort of samurai in the old days, the concept would be they would travel sort of Japan to improve their sword fighting skills and often participate in something called Dojo Yabari, where they go to different dojos and try and defeat the students and the masters. And obviously people don't do that anymore, but there is, people still do Shugyou. And you can also apply the term Shugyou, which basically Shugyou means like a journey of work in a way, and you can apply it to your Kendo journey as a whole. Like, I consider my path of Kendo as one big Shugyou, and I think that's a common way to interpret it as well. But I think what you're specifically talking about here is the concept of like traveling around to try and sort of improve your understanding of Kendo in that respect, and especially to, like you say, gain the knee of the Shuhari concept. Shuhari being like the concept of it's like protect is what it actually means. What it means, like, to learn the ways, and then to break away, and then, like, is that what it is? I've got the dictionary here. All right, so why, instead of just giving me instead of me just giving you this sort of random personal interpretation, let's give you the official one of Shuhari. If I can find it in here. This book, by the way, is available at Kendostar.com. Probably got Shugyou in here as well. So let's read them both. All right. So Shugyou, first of all, okay, the process of rigorously training and polishing one's mind and body. See Musha-Shugyou. Okay, so I said Musha-Shugyou, yeah. And it says the Japanese bit says the same as well. Shuhari is a teaching which explains the levels of training in Kendo. Shu, which is written as protect, is the level where one obeys the principles of one's master and learns them solidly. So you follow your teacher exactly as they say without questioning it. Okay. Ha is the level where one adds one's own ideas to what one learned in the previous level and develops their own technique. And then Ni, which is written as sort of to move away, is a level where one rises above what one has learned in the previous two levels and further develops technique and establishes a new personal style. So that concept is really difficult, actually. And I know you're not specifically asking about Shuhari, but I think it raises questions about Shuhari as well. And the thing about Shuhari is the biggest step is the first one, where you follow the teachings of your teacher to the letter. And in Kendo wise, I reckon you do that until at least 5th Dan, at least. So yeah. Though there are elements where you do develop your own style along the way. That's because everybody's different, but you sort of really follow what you're being taught up to that point. And then hard probably is where you're starting to form your own ideas about Kendo properly. Is probably more sort of 6th and 7th Dan, and then Lee is more sort of 8th Dan, and obviously towards Hanshi. As you mentioned, Shugyou as well, and it does say Musha-Shugyou Sansho, so it doesn't tell you the page for Musha-Shugyou, so let's just quickly flick to Musha-Shugyou. Musha-Shugyou is basically, Musha means warrior. So, Musha-Shugyou, there it is. The act of a warrior traveling around various districts and risking his life in Bujutsu practice and training. Today, it refers to visiting and practicing dojo in various places. See Degeko. Okay? So, Degeko is where you go. I'm not going to just flick from page to page in the dictionary, but it's where you go and visit different dojos. So, I think that's part of the modern Shugyo as well in Kendo. So, where you would visit other dojos and do practice with the other students there. It's not, Kendo isn't Kendotsu, yeah, as I know some people will probably disagree with that. But in that sense, it's not Kendotsu in the way that I don't think of Kendo as Kendotsu anyway, and I don't think of it in the way that, you know, we don't go around doing the dojo yabari, right, where we go and try and defeat the students and teachers of other dojos. That's not what Kendo's about now. So I think your Shugyo could be your own personal journey up to now, and also, yeah, going to different dojos to learn and going to seminars as well. Like, that's something that we do a lot in the West. There aren't many seminars in Japan, especially not for adults. You might have the odd Shimpan Koshukai is a seminar. You might have the odd Shimpan one, but you generally don't have like a seminar with like high level teachers that will then teach you Kihon, because you're expected to learn that in your dojo for a start, and it just doesn't happen that much. So we're actually extremely lucky in the West or outside of Japan, where we have these wonderful seminars where we get these elite level senseis that, like, if you lived in Japan, you'd never get the chance to practice with, at least not on it. You wouldn't get sort of extended instruction from, and you get to spend like a day or two learning directly from like these ultimate senseis. It's like it's paradise in a way. Obviously there's benefits to, you know, obviously, like, you obviously miss out. It's a benefit we get not being in Japan for that, but there's obviously other benefits that far outweigh it by doing Kendo in Japan as well. So obviously it's not like just that, but it is something that you should be aware of if you go to one of these seminars. Okay, I don't know if I answered your question, but I don't know of the idea of uchideshi though in Kendojo. I think the idea of uchideshi is like where you're like, there's informal versions of it, but an uchideshi would be where like the student literally lives with the teacher, and like acts as his kind of, if we'd probably say servant, but that's not really the right way to look at it. But they would do like, you know, his housework or like help around, you know, like, it's really Japanese way, I'd say. But it kind of, it's part of the Shugyo, and that sort of exists. The concept of it exists in a diluted form in Kendo, especially in Japan, where, for example, if you were to go, you know, if a teacher or a sensei were to go to a dojo, then the lower members of the dojo would obviously look after their teacher. They might, you know, tidy his bogue up, pack up his bogue, carry his bogue to and from the car, stuff like that, which we don't really do so much here. It is quite a big part of it in general, in the sort of whole progression of Kendo, I really feel. But it's a really difficult aspect of Japanese culture as well to integrate into Kendo outside of Japan. So I'm not quite sure where that fits in, to be honest. Because in my experience so far, like, it doesn't seem to gel so well. So, yeah. But I don't know of any, like, proper traditional type uchideshi going on. I doubt it never happens. But anyway, next question. I'm an elderly and lowly second dan who has taken a shine to the idea of your large grip Kotogata Shinai. It was the sales pitch in the video that did it. Can you explain why the Shinai is a relatively large increase in diameter, 30mm, compared to the more usual 26mm? Is it to bring the Shinai's centre of gravity back towards the scar and increase the diameter very noticeably if you have been used to a general purpose Shinai? Would you advise someone of my grade and age to use this style of Shinai? Okay, so what you're talking about is the... I thought I had one here. I guess I don't have one here. Let me grab one right now. Oof, okay, I'm back. So this is the Nichirin Shinai, Nichirin To Shinai that I've been using myself. Oh God, I love it. It's such a nice Shinai. So because of the thicker the grip, what it essentially does is the thickness of the entire Shinai is almost the same. Obviously, it's a little bit larger here, all right, a little bit, yeah, but overall, it's very similar across the whole thing. And what that means is that the balance of it is very evenly distributed. What you sometimes get is if you had a Koto style Shinai like this, but you went down to a thinner grip, because you take so much weight out of the grip by making it like a 26mm sort of standard grip, you'd find that the weight would be very much more top heavy. So it'd feel really tip heavy. Okay. So what this does is it gives it more, it's not like a door body because it doesn't feel tip light, but it feels very consistent, the balance across the entire thing. And it means that you do get a very nice balance, in my opinion. And I think it really does give the best type of balance for a Koto style Shinai. Now, as to whether, whether using it, would I advise someone of your age and your grade and age to use it? It's really up to you, all right? If you're second dan, then you're at the point where, yeah, you can start to think about what Shinai you want to use a bit more. If you're just starting out, if you're just a beginner, you don't necessarily need to. You can. There's nothing stopping you, right? It's not like they all feel the same to everybody, but I think my advice would be, if it interests you, try it. It's the only way you're going to find out, okay? I think they're a great Shinai. I don't think they're like... I think they're useful for everybody anyway. I think I've... Personally, for years now, I've always used Koto style Shinai and Dobari Shinai together. And what I mean by that is I use them for different purposes. I often use Koto style Shinai, and I have done for a long time, in my Kihon practice, or especially like if I'm doing a long extended Kirikaishi practice or something like that, where I'm going to do a lot of sort of Kihon style practice. And then like for Shiai or even for Jigeiko, I'll swap over to a Dobari style. Then, alright? But this type of Shinai, especially because of the nice balance that it has, I've started using this in Jigeiko as well, and I've actually really started liking it. Now, granted, because of the whole situation, I haven't done that much Jigeiko. It's just been a little bit of informal Jigeiko with my wife and kids. But I think it's a really nice Shinai, and I think it's great for all purposes. So yeah, I would recommend it for somebody who's Nidan and of all ages, to be honest. Especially, as you mentioned about your age, you brought it up. If you're not looking to do sort of really energetic Kendo where you do lots of Renzoku Waza, then a Koto style Shinai can be really beneficial, because it really is sort of aimed towards or geared towards that sort of one shot style Kendo. So yeah, I definitely think it'd be worth you giving it a try. Next one. I noticed that most of our club members have Kendostar branded gear. Great. What a fantastic Kendo club. However, when I asked what model they were using, they all said it was a mix of gear. For example, if I were to order a Kamui set and needed spares, will I always get the Kamui gear? So, what that is that obviously some people will have bought like a set of Borger, and then other people, or even the same people, might have bought parts as spares. So like just a spare part, you know, spare set of Kote or something. And they might have bought, let's say, a Myrmidon set, and then they'll have bought the Vanguard original Kote as a spare set of Kote, and that's how it's a mix of stuff, or different things like that. If you were to buy the Kamui set, for example, and then later you wanted spares, you could buy the same ones if you wanted them to match, or you could perfectly acceptably buy other, you know, other models instead. You know, like if you wanted the Kamui set, and then you were like, well, I also want an extra pair of Kote just for practice, and you don't need to get another pair of Kamui Kote. You could get like the original Vanguard Kote, for example, which are a little bit lower priced, and still really practical for sort of regular, you know, everyday practice. So that's where that comes along. You definitely don't need to, you know, if you get spares, you don't need to have the same ones as the set that you have. All right, so that's where sort of mix of gear comes from. Next one, in the Tadao Sensei Nito video you posted on your blog, so that's the Toda Sensei video I posted the other day of some ippons that he did from Nito, which is a two-sword style. In one of the clips, he's seen holding the Daito about halfway point of the tsuka. From what I know, you're supposed to still hold the Daito at the end of the tsuka, but I can understand that during Shiai, your hand may slip up and down. Where would you personally draw the line on what was acceptable? Brilliant. Okay, so let me grab this shinai. First off, all right, a bit of an apology. That video was a little bit confusing. It's mainly Toda Sensei. Well, the very last clip, which is the one that you're referring to, is not Toda Sensei. It's a different sensei, okay? And you can see him. Toda Sensei holds the Daito in the left hand, and he always holds it at the very bottom like this. But the other sensei in the other one, he's holding it something like this. There's no rule saying where you have to hold the shinai, all right? You don't have to hold the shinai at the very bottom, all right? You can hold it higher up. The reason, the two things you have to consider though is, one, by holding it further up, you're reducing the length of the shinai, all right? So you're taking away some of your reach. Now the thing to remember is Toda Sensei didn't start doing Nito until after he became 8th Dan, and before that he was a Jodan player, all right? So he was used to making one-handed strikes with his left hand holding it at the bottom. So yeah, if you hold it in the middle like the other clip, you're shortening the shinai for a start. Secondly, although like I say, it's not against the rules to hold it further up, you know, you could even hold it by the tsuka and make strikes, right? However, you have to be able to make strikes that fulfill the criteria of Yuko Datotsu, valid strikes. That means you have to make a strike that has correct tenouchi, cutting technique. It must have the correct power, and must also have sae. Sae is like the crispness, right? That's easier when you hold it at the bottom. Same in Chudan or Jodan, all right? If you hold the shinai like this, it's hard to do strikes with proper tenouchi, all right? It's not impossible, but it's harder. So there's nothing in the rules that say it. So it's not about whether it's acceptable or not, all right? But what you are doing by holding it further up the tsuka is making it a little bit harder for yourself in some areas, all right? Now that particular sensei has overcome those, but that's an exception rather than a rule, let's say. Okay, next one. I've heard that when getting a hakama and kendogi for a small kid, 5 years old, it's best to get them a bit bigger so that the little one can grow into them. How much bigger would you still be manageable, and how do you go about making the hakama shorter? Folding it from the bottom and making temporary stitches to keep it in place. So, no, so what you do, Okay. Now, this is as someone that's my kids started Kendo when they were 7. 5's a little bit young, in my opinion, for starting Kendo, but each their own. The best is to get probably a couple of sizes bigger than they need. All right. So if you send us an email with how tall they are, we'll let you know what size will be best and what you can do. But the way you make the hakama shorter, you can fold it up from underneath and stitch it. That's one way. What we generally did is actually at the back, where the koshita is, it's a bit hard to show this, but we lifted the fabric up at the back and put the stitches just under the koshita, all right? And then when they put it on at the front, we rolled it over, okay? We rolled it over at the front. Does that make sense? That's one way to do it. And with the kendogi, the sleeves, you basically, you kind of fold them over like that. You see that? Can you see that? Like that, all the way around, and then stitch them a bit, just like loosely. And then as they grow, you can do it. All right. That's the most common way of doing it. Next one. Do you have any tips for striking Kote on an opponent who's considerably shorter than you? I'm taller than most Kendoka, a little over 2 meters, and when striking at Kote, my shinai generally has to end up angling downwards. The Kote strike doesn't feel quite right, and I'm having trouble getting proper tenuchi and aim. I know that part of this is because I'm still new, but part also seems to be a weird angle. Any advice greatly appreciated. Okay. So when you're striking Kote on a shorter person, all right, of course the shinai is going to have to be angled downwards because the target is lower, right? You can do a couple of things, like you can lower your hands as you strike, but if I'm doing Kote against like my youngest kid, there's a big height difference and her Kote is much shorter than where I would normally strike. Yeah, I can still do it, and yes, I would have to strike angled downwards slightly. I probably won't get perfect tenuchi. The thing I would stress above anything else is that you don't worry too much about the tenuchi for the time being, and just worry about striking accurately, all right? Because it's harder to hit accurately on a smaller person than you are, because the target's smaller and it's an awkward angle, like you say. At the end of the day, it's always going to be harder for you to hit Kote against a smaller person. It's not a great waza for you. Like, if you're talking about in Kihon, like basic practice, you have to do it, all right? So I just try and hit accurately and correctly. Don't worry about hitting hard or having perfect tenuchi. Just try to make sure you hit the target properly. If you're talking about like in Jigeko or in like Shiai, you're hardly ever going to hit Kote. It's like Do. It's just not going to be a useful waza for you. But your men is going to be really good. That's where the balance comes. Like, you are at a massive advantage when it comes to hitting men, but they're at a massive advantage when they come to hit Kote or Do. All right, so that's how it balances out. That's just the fact of it. All right, so Kote against really short people isn't really going to be an awesome waza for you. All right, like if I do Jigeko with my daughter, I don't hit her Kote. I just don't bother. Yeah, my elder daughter, who's not as short, and she's a little bit better than her sister. I might do it, but I only tap at it. I don't try and like score proper ippon on it. Do you know what I mean? But then there's a level difference as well. All right. So if you was with somebody who was, as you gain more experience, there are other things you can do. Let's say if you're against a sensei that's much smaller than you, or even just someone that's more advanced, that's much smaller than you. And yeah, it's not that it's impossible to hit Kote, because it is. There's lots of things you can do. Like I say, you can lower the level of your arms. You can bend your knees as you strike. Yeah, you can do that. Of course you can. So experiment a bit with that as well, thinking about it. Yeah. But more importantly, just focus on accuracy. Yeah. But you can adjust your height with your knees. That's fine too. especially in that specific situation. Does Kendostar have a dojo discount program? If not, have you considered making one in the past? Okay, so yeah, we sort of do, but it's kind of a case by case basis. The best thing to do is if a dojo has an order that they want to put through that's like a large order, then get in touch and we'll sort out like a better price for you if we can. The thing is, right? The thing is I know that Kendostar isn't the cheapest kendo shop out there. I know that. I'm not trying to be the cheapest one. I'm trying to be the best one. And you can't be both, right? That's the fact. So the thing is I know that we're not the cheapest out there, but I am doing my best to keep our prices as low as we possibly can, considering that costs us more to operate than a lot of our competitors, based on the quality of products that we offer, based on the quality of service that we offer. Don't forget, like right now this, if you're watching this in the future, things might have changed, I don't know, but right now our shipping policy is that if you order over 75 GBP British pounds on our website, we don't just pay for free shipping for you, which we do. But we also, for most countries where Kendo is popular, some countries we can't do it in, but for most, we also pay the import taxes. Yeah, like if you were to order from a company in Japan and you're in the US, for example, when that arrives in the US, you're gonna have to pay import taxes. Yeah, because you didn't pay sales tax in Japan. Yeah, you have to pay it in your country, or VAT, or whatever the tax is. So that gets collected as import taxes. Yeah. Now we pay that for you. If you're in America and you order from us, even though we're in the UK, if your order's over £75, then if you're in the USA or in Canada or Australia, then we don't just pay for the shipping costs, we pay for that import cost as well. So we've got quite high costs to operate. You know, I'm not driving a Porsche, yeah. I'm doing my best here, to obviously provide for my family, keep the lights on, keep the channel running, and also provide the best equipment in the market. So, you know, when it comes to discounts, I am doing my best with it. There are other ways to get discounts on a personal level. You know, if it's not for a dojo, we've got coupon codes out there if you look for them. But like on a dojo level, it depends, and it really depends on lots of things. So what we need people to do is get in touch with us, and then we'll provide as best a price as we possibly can. All right, because also we have different margins on different items too, right? So yeah. In the AJKF official guide to Kendo instruction, page 161, important points of Motodachi, they mention Mukaizuki, but they don't explain what it is. It's not in the glossary. It is also not in the Japanese to English dictionary of Kendo. Could you explain what it is? Are you sure it's not in this? This is the Japanese to English dictionary of Kendo, because I read this question and I had a look in here specifically, and I think you'll find that on page 71, listed under M, is Mukaizuki. All right. Now, I think part of the problem is the translation into English. I'm not sure. I haven't got the official guide to hand, but they might have used a different romanization of the word Mukaizuki. All right. Because you'll probably notice as I'm pronouncing it, you've written Mukaizuki, but I'm pronouncing it Mukaizuki, and that's because that's not the correct way, but it's a more common way to pronounce it. Tsu in Japanese, the sound tsu, which is the start of the word ski, when that's attached to another word, usually becomes zu. Okay, so there's three ways to write Mukaizuki. You could write it like you have. You could change the T, S to a DZ. That's one way. Or you could just change the TS to a Z, which is what they've done here. All right. So it's Mukaizuki. So there's a bit of a difference, I think, between what the Japanese says and the English says, but we'll read the English first. The act of intentionally thrusting upward at the opponent from below when he or she swings the shinai up and comes in for a men attack. This thrust is prohibited because it is dangerous. All right. The reason I say there's a bit of a discrepancy between the English and the Japanese is the word prohibited. I'll try and read the Japanese. So yeah, I'm not great at reading Japanese, so forgive me if I get it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it says 向かい突き、相手が面打ちをしようとして、竹刀を振りかぶり打突してきたとき、声に下から突き上げる交差。Okay? So that bit's the same. Yeah, so when the aite, the partner, goes to do men and they raise the shinai with the sort of bad intentions, like it says, yeah, thrusting the shinai from below upwards in the tsuki motion. Yeah. 危険なので行ってはならない行為. Okay? There we go. I can read some kanji. Whew! I'm not great at kanji, but that basically that's what I mean is that last sentence is a little bit different. It says 危険なので行ってはならない行為. So you shouldn't do it. You can't do it. Right? You shouldn't do it. It doesn't say literally prohibited. Prohibited gives the connotations that it's written in the rules. It's not technically written in this book. All right, as far as I'm aware. This book does say that you shouldn't do the strikes that aren't allowed, though. So that's where it could be interpreted as that. So you would get a handsucker for it. Anyway, I digress. I keep picking the shinai up. So what it is when your opponent comes, it's not just holding the kamae. All right? Just holding the kamae and letting them stick themselves on the kamae. It's you see them coming to strike and you go this way like this and try and stab them from below like that. All right? Do that in the shiai. Obviously, that is that's probably going to get your handsucker. And you shouldn't do it as motodachi either. Okay? You can hold the kamae. That's different. But what it's saying is like aggressively doing like this. Okay? Whew. Right. Next one. Hi Fish Sensei, thank you once again for all that you do. Your brilliant videos and fast tracking a lot of progress for a beginner like myself. Oh, brilliant, thank you. Okay, after a month of practice as a fresh beginner, my sensei told me that I should now be thinking of doing fumikomi ashi as I strike. My practice strikes so far have been with the sliding motion as seen in the warm-up subudis, but none of them are the stomp. I'm having immense trouble to coordinate the stomp and strike. My stomp is always early because my shinai tip speed isn't fast enough. Yet, do you have any tips? 1, for lining up the strike and stomp, and 2, creating a boom sound like when my sensei does it. When I try to do it, it just hurts so much that a loud boom sound hurts so much to make the loud boom sound. In America, most sporting facilities are built right on top of concrete, so the fumikomi always hits hard wood floor along with hard concrete. Do you have an advice not hurting your feet while doing fumikomi? Thanks so much. Yes, no problem. First off, I've done quite a bit of kendo in America, actually, in the US. I'm not sure where you're based, but when I've done kendo in Los Angeles, or in California, it wasn't like that. They were really nice floors. But anyway, first off, okay. So the first thing is that your stomp is early. Your stamp is early, right? So what's happening here, right, is you're trying to swing and stamp at the same time. Like this, yeah? Like this. I know it's not a great example. I've posted a video I've done about fumikomi, which you should watch for a start. But here's the thing. If you try and swing and stamp at the same time, what's going to happen is you're going to go like this, which is what you're doing. Because your shinai is moving further and slower than your foot. All right? That's natural. Here's what you need to do, right? Don't swing and try to stamp at the same time. Swing, then strike and stamp this way. Break it down a little bit into two, all right? Swing, mem, okay? Swing, mem. Try doing it that way, all right? I think that's gonna help you a lot, all right? Follow the things I've shown you in the video I did about Fumikomi, and also watch the Zero to Shodan series again, because I talk about it a bit in there too, all right? Secondly, about creating the boom sound, forget it, all right? Forget it. You don't do Fumikomi to create the boom sound, all right? Don't worry about that at all. Focus on doing it at roughly the same time as your strike, okay? Roughly the same time as your strike. Now, here's another controversial one, all right? I'm darting back and forth a bit. I'll come back to it. Let's finish on the boom topic, all right? Just don't worry about making the boom sound. It'll come later. It's a byproduct of the act of Fumikomi. You don't do it in order to make the boom sound, all right? So don't worry about how loud it sounds. Just focus on hitting with your body and your feet and your sword together, okay? Now, just to tap back on the coordinating it together, here's a controversial one, and a lot of people don't like it when I say this. Should I say it? I'm going to. Right. Here's one I've done in the past with some of my beginners in previously, right? Is I've had them strike something like a partner holding a shinai like this, right? And raise and then hit and stamp this way. Yeah, raise. Oops, I'm hitting my stuff behind me. Hit and stamp this way, okay? Fine. But still, lots of people, and probably you're going to struggle still with stamp and then hit. I asked them to try and raise and then hit and then stamp, okay? But not too far apart, so not hit, stamp this way, but start. I want them to try and hit and then stamp a split second after the strike. All right? I know that's probably a bit controversial, but what I find is when I ask them to do that, they suddenly start stamping at the same time almost. All right? And the reason for that is because actually in slow motion, if you watch a high speed strike, the shinai hits before the stamp lands when you do it correctly. All right? The Kikentai no Ichi doesn't actually mean that you stamp and hit at the same time. All right? It means that your body is coordinated with your sword. All right? And your spirit is coordinated with those two as well. It doesn't mean you stamp at the moment that your sword lands. That's not true. Okay? It means that your body is working in unison together with your sword and spirit. So when actually you make a correct strike, your shinai makes contact before your foot does with the floor. Controversial point. Hot take. Spicy. Right. Nearly there. Hi Andy, are there any rules, restrictions or requirements, dimensions, weight, authorized material regarding the shinai tsuba? Yes, there are. In this book here, this is the rule book. I think it's on page 1. Let's have a quick look. Shinai. It's not on page 1. It's probably on page 2. Where are we? So there we are. It's on page 2. The tsuba should be round in shape. So it must be round. You can't have a square one or a hexagon shaped one. All right. Made of leather or synthetic material. So it should be leather or plastic or some kind of synthetic material. It means it shouldn't be metal. All right. It should be 9 centimeters or smaller in diameter. All right. And it has to be fixed to the shinai. Okay. That's the rules. Right. So you can't make one that's like a dinner plate. Yeah. And you can't make it out of like metals. Has to be synthetic or leather. You can't make it out of paper. Okay. And you shouldn't make it out of wood either, actually. Not sure why you would, but anyway. And it's got to be 9 centimeters. That's it. Hi Andy, how would you compare the skull sizes of octagonal octagonal, which is the right one. I think it's octagonal. Anyway, shinai to the round ones. Like 28 octagonal is comparable to, let's say, 26 millimeter round and so on. Okay, so actually it's the other way. If anything, an octagonal one, which I happen to have here because I read this question beforehand, we measure it like from the flat side to the flat side, not necessarily from the corners. So I've got a little sort of micrometer gauge here. Is that what you call it? Calipers. Yeah. And if I measure from there to there, let's see if I can get this on the camera. See if I can you see this? I don't know if you can see this. Yeah? It's like 28, yeah? Now, if I were to change that and measure it, like from literally the widest point, because we've got a scar on this, yeah, leather thing, and it's got this sewn seam on the top. Actually, right, it's closer, and you'll see, it's closer. You see that? It's closer to 30. It's close to 30, all right? So if it's like, I think it says on the website, if it says 28 millimeters, then we'll have measured it from there. But it's actually a little bit bigger. So this is the Tenma, which is the seihaku, the like proper octagon shape. It's a little bit like a large grip. Okay, and then the Hachiman, that's an even larger grip still. So if you like a really massive grip, Hachiman's a great choice. Last one, what are the general guidelines for shinai sizes for teenagers aged 14, 15, 16 and 17? Also, are there weight differences for boys and girls there are for men and women shinai? Planning to offer Kendo to a group of teens this age group, but want to ensure they get the correct size shinai. Yeah, so that's great. Yeah. There are. I've got the rule book here. Now, there's a little caveat I'm going to put to this, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the All Japan Kendo Federation rules, so the International Kendo Federation rules, I should say it's the thing is Japan does it by school age, like school year, rather than by literal age. But they say, so you've got junior high school students and then you've got high school students. But in the English version, it does give ages. So junior high school is 12 to 15. But then it says high school 15 to 18. So if you're 15, you're sort of in both. So it depends if you're like, I guess like, I'd say if you were 15, probably you should just start using the high school size one. So for 14-year-olds or sort of small or younger 15-year-olds, they need to use one that is basically a 37, yeah? And there's 37 boys and there is 37 girls, all right? It has to be less than 114 centimeters long. Males, it has to be more than 440 grams. And for females, more than 400 grams, all right? And for high school students, so that's for your older 15-year-olds, your 16, 17 to 18-year-olds, then that's 117 centimeters, so that's a 38 size, all right? And then, yes, there's men's and women's. You've got the men's size, which is 480 grams, and then there's the women's size, which is 420 grams. So that's where there's a lot of confusion often when I always talk about like women using 38 size shinai. They're for high school kids, all right? And if you get a 38 size shinai, it's either going to be too light because it'll be a girl's one, which is 420, and an adult woman has to use one that's 440, or it'll be too heavy because it'll be a boy's one, which is 480. Yeah, a proper adult women's shinai is a 39 women's, which is 440 grams or more. And is less than 120 centimeters, which is 39 in length. Now, the one thing I do want to say is at the last European Kendo Championships, all right, at the European Kendo Championships, I don't know why, but the rules that were published showed that the I think it showed, I think it was 440 or 420 for the boys. and the juniors, and the junior category is 15 to 18. So it actually showed like the wrong weights. They were too light for the boys. I think it showed 440 for the boys. It might have even shown 420 and then 400 for the girls. So yeah, I'm not sure why they don't use the International Kendo Federation rules for the junior Shinai, but that might change next time. But the official rules are that. Okay, they're in the rule book. Okay, so make sure you get one of these. That's it. We got through them all. Thank you for joining me today. Things are feeling better, aren't they? I mean, I know there's obviously different situations all around the world. In Japan, it's getting a little bit ropey again, but in the UK, of course, where we are, it's going really well. And you know, I think it's going to start getting better. Brighter days are ahead. I think if you're not already back in the dojo, I don't think there's too long to wait. All right, so fingers crossed we can get back to Kendo very soon. My dojo started again last week. Wednesday. We're still not allowed to practice in pairs. It's still individual practice, but we were actually able to allow people to come to the dojo for individual practice. So adults, that is. And in the couple of weeks before that, I was able to do some armored practice with my kids, because we're allowed to do practice with kids. And then hopefully in a couple of weeks, we're looking at hopefully starting paired practice again. So fingers crossed. I hope that the situation gets better for everybody. I hope you can get back to Kendo, and it can start having the wonderful impact on your life as it does. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Join the Kendo Show Early Access group so you can leave me a question next week. Shop at Kendostar. Have a great weekend, everyone. And I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.